issue of our time.
Welcome to Jane Unchained, featuring best-selling author, TV journalist, and JaneUnchained.com founder, Jane Velez Mitchell. In the next few minutes, you'll hear a secret solution to the problems that plague our world. If you want to revolutionize your life, get truly joyful, and jump to the next phase of human evolution, all it takes is one simple choice. Now, here's your host, Jane Velez Mitchell.
And welcome, everyone. Good morning. Are you happy, joyous, and free? I certainly am, because, you know, I do a lot of dumb things every day. Every day when I put my head on the pillow, I go, what was I thinking? But one thing I know, when I put my head on that pillow, I didn't kill today. And that gives me a tremendous amount of joy. And today I'm also joyous because we have an extraordinary guest, Jasmin Singer, a vegan powerhouse in the house. And she has done so many things and is doing so many things. Honestly, to tell you about them, it would just be an hour. So Jasmin, whether it's your work, your book that you wrote, your memoir that is so fantastic, your work with VegNews Magazine, and I've got VegNews Magazine right here that I read religiously. It's so fantastic. Your work with the Pollination Project, your TEDx talk, take it away. Where are we, Jasmin, as a vegan movement today in January of 2019?
I think we're in a whole lot better of a place than we've ever been in the past. Jane, also, it's so great to see you here on the Facebook Live version of your show and your little dog. So cute. I think we're in a tipping point, which is actually what Matthew Kenny said when I interviewed him recently, the most successful plant-based restaurateur in the world, who owns like 25 vegan restaurants around the globe, recently said that we are finally at a place where we're no longer competing with other vegan products, but veganism is competing with just food in general. And as an animal rights movement, I came to the movement 15 years ago when I was standing in front of a grocery store on the Upper West Side doing protests about foie gras. And now it is not about getting people to stop consuming one particular fringe animal product, but rather it's about helping people to realize that veganism is the obvious next choice. I think we've come a really, really long way in terms of moving from the fringe to the mainstream. We still have a ways to go, but I am so excited by the amount of vegan products and people and activists that are coming into my realm all the time.
Yes, and we every Monday showcase a new vegan event or restaurant. We're going to a major fast food restaurant today that just added a Beyond Meat burger. And then we hear that the Impossible Burger is being expanded nationwide in another fast food restaurant. All that is absolutely extraordinary. And yet the reason I have my incredible mascot, little Rico, a rescue from Puerto Rico, on every time we talk is because people say they're animal lovers. They desperately love their dogs and cats, but that circle of compassion doesn't extend past dogs and cats to the vast majority of animals who, when I say who, are factory farm animals. And unfortunately, while the vegan options are skyrocketing and more restaurants are getting veganish, that's absolutely incredible. But yet the number of animals being slaughtered is not going down. And one of the reasons is a lot of people think chicken is a vegetable. And 95% of all the animals slaughtered are chickens. We just covered a horrific story where a woman who owned an industrialized warehouse factory farm went bankrupt and had to literally kill, they like to say destroy, kill, snap the necks, possibly kill in some way, shape, or form, thousands of chickens. 500 plus were rescued by animal organizations. We went live as 15 of those rescued chickens arrived in Texas at a sanctuary yesterday. But the idea that we can turn these animals into industrialized objects that can be stacked as so many things in warehouses is the ultimate problem. What is the solution to that, Jasmin?
Well, I think that there are more and more factory farms, and smaller operations that are turning to plant-based agriculture, understanding that we can't possibly feed the world with the type of CAFOs that became popularized at the, baby boomer generation, the 50s. And now that our planet is basically, exploding with more and more people, we can't keep up with the demand with meat-based products and with animal-based products. It's just not possible. So I think the solution is already happening at VegNews, where I'm the digital director. I'm pitched stories left and right about dairy farms that are turning into almond farms, and various non-vegan restaurants that are totally changing to 100% plant-based. It's not about deprivation, and it's not about having absolutely no way of showing up in our business models. It's about shifting those business models to be plant-based ultimately.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And we're working actually with the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary's Rancher Advocacy Program to transition right now a massive chicken farming operation into a mushroom farming operation. And there's also the alternative of hemp, and there's also the alternative of marijuana as it increasingly gets legalized around the nation. And that doesn't mean that we're encouraging anybody to get high. I'm 23 years sober. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and once a pickle, never again a cucumber, to use a vegan metaphor. But we're not saying, oh, go into some other bad industry. There's actually really good uses for marijuana, whether it's medicinal, whether it's non-intoxicating CBD oil that doesn't have the intoxicating aspect that's good for dogs. In fact, there's a whole line of those products for animals to reduce stress and pain. So there's a lot of things that people can do. Here's my question to you. You are a media maven. You've written an incredible book. You're a TEDx talker. You obviously have a prominent position with VegNews Magazine. I'll show another cover. It's just an incredible, incredible magazine. You work with the amazing Pollination Project, which we're going to discuss in a second. But my question to you is, what about the media? I was in the media mainstream for 38 years, and there is just a complete lockdown on discussing this issue. Props to CNN, just put out a story a couple of days ago that said, basically, we're going to have to stop eating animals. We're going to have to switch to plant-based because our planet cannot sustain it. But it came and went. You have, even on MSNBC, people joking about, oh, how many wings I ate. And my turkey was so big, I couldn't get it in the oven. These are progressive liberals who call themselves environmentalists, who attack, as they should, the administration for trying to trash the Paris climate change accords. What do we say to them? How do we get through to them? Because I've had the experience when I try to talk to them, they react like I'm attacking them. I'm not attacking them. I'm trying to help them save the planet.
Well, first of all, I think it depends on the media outlet. Like, as you know more than anyone else, and I also I co-founded a media nonprofit 10 years ago called Our Hen House, which is really not only about creating a space for people who want to change the world for animals, most primarily through our podcast network and the Our Hen House podcast, but also through something that we call Rising Anxieties, which is a segment on the podcast where we're talking about what the opposition and what the media is saying about vegans and animal rights activists. And oftentimes it doesn't even require any kind of commentary because it speaks for itself. It's kind of hilarious, actually. But to your point, I think it depends. Like, I was trying to pull it up, but Self Magazine has a whole piece on vegans of color and why veganism is so important to them. And that's because, Self Magazine is something that really appeals to millennials and younger people who are actually starting to think about these issues in ways that maybe my generation or your generation has not thought about, except for you and I, obviously, and and a whole bunch of others. But just primarily, as a group, the millennials are driving the vegan machine forward. And as for reaching the media, I don't think that they're unreceptive. I mean, you have a different vantage point than I do, obviously, specifically regarding CNN and HLN. But from where...
No, I applaud CNN for, and I never talk about my previous employers. I applaud them for putting out that article. They laid it out pretty clearly that this is an unsustainable model that has to change. So kudos to them. I'm not attacking them. I'm saying in general, the media is not talking about this as the urgent issue it is. You could talk about the New York Times. They're always talking about climate change. How often do they talk about veganism? No, on their page, they've got a food section and they promote non-vegan products constantly. So there's a real disconnect there that I think we have to acknowledge.
Well, of course there is a disconnect. And the New York Times had that piece a couple of weeks ago on like the history of climate change from, I think, 1980 to now. And, you know, animal agriculture, it was in there, but only in a very, very small amount. I know it's a passing, like a passing blip on the radar. But, you know, I guess it's because of the way we cover stories at VegNews, but I am seeing the trend more and more that we are getting through to the mainstream media. That's partially thanks to celebrity culture and the fact that we've got like Miley Cyrus on our team and these people that just make the headline every time they walk out their front door. But in addition to that, like from a bigger perspective, like what you said is kind of jarring about the amount of animals who are killed each year continuing to rise, which is obviously because of the population boom and because of the fact that we are moving toward a world where the rich eat animals and the poor eat nothing. So how do we reach the media? I think it starts with every single person who's listening to this show now getting involved in whatever way makes sense for them. It's something you've been advocating for a long time, that we have a moral imperative not only to stop eating animals, but we have a moral imperative to get involved in the movement to change the world for animals. And that's something that I think each of us can do, whether it's through academia or whether it's through the arts or whether it's through legal means. The Our Hen House brand produces the Animal Law podcast because my co-founder and co-host, Marianne Sullivan, teaches animal law at Columbia Law School. And you see the animal law movement really gaining in popularity more so than ever before, thanks largely to, you know, influencers such as Bob Barker, who donated millions of dollars to start animal law programs everywhere. It does get back to the media because when Bob Barker donates millions of dollars to start an animal law program at 10 law schools, then people start to notice and animal law starts to become something that we're paying attention to. When Miley Cyrus advocates for veganism by getting a vegan tattoo, that makes the news. So what we have to do is not change the media, but kind of join the media bandwagon and veganize the stories that they're hosting. I have to tell you, on a personal level, a personal story.
I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I was at a Christmas get together a couple of weeks ago, and one of the people there is a producer for a major TV network, and he was looking for interesting Christmas stories for the next day. You know, I'm sitting there next to him, and I start pitching him some of the huge vegan potlucks and rescue events that are going on in Los Angeles, where I live, and that is how you get in. You look for the stories they're covering and you think about how you can twist it with a vegan lens and then you pitch it. You don't sit around saying, why isn't the media covering this? But you actually pitch them, you know?
Yes. I pitch constantly. I mean, you know, I will say that when I worked at a tabloid show called Celebrity Justice, I worked very closely with PETA. And one thing we knew, because the criterion was, where's the celebrity, where's the justice for every story? And celebrities who would run from us because we were a tabloid show, literally, they would literally get out of their cars and run for their lives. They would stop and turn around and talk to me when I'd say, what's your animal issue? I even spoke to Robert Redford. His publicists were fighting to get him away from me. And he said, no, I want to talk about the military sonar and the whales. And this is an important issue for me. It's more important than anything. And so we were able to interview a lot of celebrities. And by hook or by crook, when I had a national cable TV show, I did a weekly animal segment. And actually, when that show wrapped after a nice run of 6 years, I simply took all my social media and continued to do it with the concept that, well, one day a week, I reached XYZ people. If I did 7 stories a day on social media, maybe I could one day approximate the same amount of people, or at least get the word out there as best I could. And so that was the inspiration for what I've been doing since 2015. And so I agree with you 100%. I'm not trying to be negative, but I can't also ignore the fact that the biggest threat to our planet today, globally, climate change, which we are seeing more and more, whether it's the fires in Malibu, the Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, those are a mere appetizer to what is going to come down the pike if we don't reverse climate change. And what is being ignored is the principal cause of climate change, which is animal agriculture. It is the leading cause of deforestation. It is the leading cause of habitat extinction. It is the leading cause of human world hunger because animals are eating all the food that could go directly to people. We are starving humans while we are fattening up pigs and cows. And it is morally reprehensible that the powers that be, the so-called best and the brightest, which, by the way, if you read the book, was a sarcastic title, are refusing to give this issue the importance it deserves. And that's just a fact that I feel morally obligated to talk about, not to condemn, but to beg, to plead and say, please look at this. I send people I know, when I still have their emails, links to stories that lay it out very quickly with sources, and I don't get a response. In fact, I've started writing songs. My next song is going to be No Reply While They Die and I Cry.
Oh my
No
gosh.
reply while they die and I cry. Address that if you will, then we're going to go to a break in a second.
I think the point is that we keep going. You are one of the most relentless people I know. I am one of the most relentless people I know. I think what we have to do is not give up. And if we don't get a reply, we email someone else. I've had relationships like that. You know, it works sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if I look down at all, it's because I am sharing our video, and I urge everyone else share it because social media is a gift. You know, everybody's attacking Facebook, and yes, they've made mistakes, but bravo for Facebook for allowing us to have this discussion. Bravo to Voice America influencers for allowing us to have this discussion. And I'd like to give a shout out to our great man in the control room, A-Rod, and our executive producer, Tacey Trump, who have encouraged us and who are saying, yes, this is an important issue. Get it out there. Speak the truth. So we're going to take a very short break on Voice America influencers, but we're staying live on Facebook. And again, if you want to give us a call, you can give us a call at 866-472-5795. See you in a second. And we can hear that music.
Yeah.
All right. We are still live on Facebook.com/JaneVelezmitchell. And again, when you see me looking down, it is because I am sharing our video. So we're getting so many comments. So Shannon Blair says, since the media isn't talking about it, we have to share. Great to know. Yes, a lot of celebrities are supportive and compassionate, says Vashti. And Star Elliott says, thank you for bringing awareness. Let's do all we can to change this world, to make it a better place. So one easy way that you can do that is simply by sharing this video with your, I call them pre-vegans or not vegans yet. Now, one of the things when we come back to Voice America Influencers, I want to talk to you about is the Pollination Project, because that's an incredible organization. I met the founder at Last Chance for Animals Gala. We sat next to each other. So inspirational. And he's a man who actually has gone into factory farms and done investigations as well. So not just distributing money and funds to help people, but actually vegan boots on the ground, as I like to say. So let's talk about that a little bit. And also your work with Our Hen House and VegNews. Honestly, Jasmine, you do so much. It's really hard to figure out what are we going to talk about, because she's doing 15 different things. And that's the other thing I want to ask you is how you know, because you're an inspiration to other people. A lot of times, look, we have 70 contributors now at Jane Unchained going live all around the world, from Israel to Europe to Latin America, coast to coast in the United States. But, you know, people often say that, oh, I don't have time to do this. You make the time. Let's come back, and we've got a caller. Let's go back to, yes.
Get ready to come back. Here we go.
Okay.
Influencers channel.
You are listening to Jane Unchained. To reach the show today, call in to 1-866-472-5795. That's 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email in to janeunchainednews@gmail.com. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, Janevelezmitchell. You are listening to Jane Unchained, Voice America Influencers with Jasmin Singer, Vegan Powerhouse. We've got a caller on the line, Erica from Los Angeles. Your question or thought, Erica?
Well, you brought up some really scary things about climate change and factory farming, and I'm just wondering what you think the top things that we can do as citizens would be to affect these things or affect the politicians or people in power that you're referring to.
I'll let you take that, Jasmin.
I think that's a great question. And it's also a great reminder that we have the power, that we feel so powerless about so many aspects of our lives, but we are powerful regarding what we are consuming and what we are choosing not to. And when I say that, I don't just mean the food on our plate and going vegan, which is the number one thing that we can do. But beyond that, we have the power to support the media that we want to support. We have the power to reach out to our politicians. And, you know, it kind of, Jane, you just brought up being sober. It actually makes me think of the Serenity Prayer, where we're reminded of the things that we can control and the things that we can't control. Mm-hmm. And when I think about the things that we can control, I am reminded that if nobody is reaching out to my politician, then nothing is going to change. If nobody is writing smart op-eds to the newspapers, then none of them are going to ever get published. It's like when you open the newspaper and you think, why are all of these stories happening? Why is nobody doing anything about it? The onus at that point is on us to create communities of accountability and to determine for ourselves what a realistic goal is in terms of like how many letters we want to write each week or how many stories we want to post. But we can't just be in an echo chamber with ourselves. We have to be reaching far beyond that and actually reaching out to the media whenever possible.
I agree with you 100%. And, you know, what I always say is whatever your ability is, put it to work for veganism and genuine environmentalism. So right now, Jane Unchained News Network, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, has a vegan bookkeeper. We have a vegan webmaster. And so everybody who has these different talents can come together and use those talents. If you're a violinist, you can play violin at a Direct Action Everywhere protest, which actually the last convergence I went to in Utah, there was a violinist playing and just supersized what would have been a somewhat more ordinary, already great demo, but just put it to another level with a violin accompaniment to some speech. It doesn't matter what you do. We also found a vegan insurance company looking for insurance, which nonprofits need. We found a vegan insurance company. So there's a whole vegonomy that can also be occurring. And there's a vegonomy, yeah, and it's happening. There's amazing things happening. There's Vegan Linked, which is a vegan LinkedIn. Beyond that, I'll just mention two other things and I'll let you take it. There's Billion Vegans, which is going to be the Amazon for veganism. And there's also Vegan Nation. So there's a lot of things happening. Can you address the vegonomy?
Can I address the vegonomy? Well, that's the first time I've heard that word and I love it, by the way. But I do want to address a little bit more directly what the caller said, which is like, what power do we have? And you mentioned that I have a book out, which is called Always Too Much and Never Enough, which is my story. And one thing that I really hope to do is embolden others to tell their stories. I think that the power of personal narrative and getting our journeys and our process out there is so underutilized in the vegan world and in the animal rights movement. Obviously, you have a couple memoirs out there, and they have really changed the world for a lot of people. And if we as a movement can come together, and by a movement, what I mean is anybody who wants to change the world,